everybody. Here we are again. Welcome to Stay Creative at OPC. We have another art kit to go this month, and I'm going to be showing you our rustic home sign today. Before we get started though, I just want to say a great big shout out and thank you to our art patron, Anthology Senior Living. They're located in Troy, and they are sponsoring some of our art programs and helping us out with these Art to Go kits. And this affords us to do a little bit more with our kits, offer more, put a little bit more in them for you to be able to enjoy and stay creative. So thank you very much, Anthology. Hopefully if you're in the building, you'll get to meet them when they're here now and then at some of our classes. So we are doing our rustic home sign today. We have two choices. You are going to have one piece of wood in your kit, but you can do either a black one or a white one, and that is totally up to you. I'm just going to show some of the basic techniques on one of the boards. We actually had a little technical difficulty, so I've had to kind of revamp on one board here. But in your kit, you're going to be receiving just a piece of plain wood, and this is what you will work on after you decide whether you want to do the white or the black. And both colors are in your kit because you'll be using the alternate for your lettering and other designs. So the very first thing you're going to do is take your piece of wood, and this was an extra one I had, so I'm just going to show. You're going to take your sandpaper and just very lightly scuff up the edges. I want to say a shout out too to our wood shop. Our guys in there cut the wood for us so that we'd have it all for you in your kits. I didn't have them sand anything, but that's a good experience for you too, to be able to prepare your piece for painting. So all you have to do is just scuff up all the edges with sandpaper on both sides, okay? So you can see, usually one side's worse than the other, so I might use that as your back side. It just seems like that's the way it goes through the saws. So just take a little time, use your sandpaper that's in your kit, and get those edges nice and smooth. When you can go around and put your hand like this or your fingers and you don't feel any snagging, you're probably fine to go. And then you want to just take your sandpaper and very lightly scuff up both sides of, you can do a little bit more than what I'm doing, but just to give it a little scuff. The wood that we're using has a tiny bit of a sheen to it. And the reason we picked that was because we felt that if we got something too rustic or too grainy, that when you go to do your lettering, it might be a little bit harder for you to keep things even. So I think that you'll find this will work better. It adheres a little bit differently, the paint to it, than a real porous wood. So you're just gonna need a couple more coats. When you are done with the sanding, you've got some paper towel and you may need to add a little extra and just wipe everything down because you don't want to get all that dust into your paint. Kind of wipe your surface. You put some butcher paper in your kit, so we always do that just so you can cover your space. So that's the first step, just get your wood prepared. Okay, now I'm going to use a piece that I've already kind of started working on because this typically takes about 3 coats. And we won't have time in this video, you'll be sitting forever if I have to do 3 coats. So I've already done a little bit on this and I'm gonna be working over a piece I already did, but it will give you the basics on how to do this. So we're gonna put our sandpaper aside and we're going to take our foam brush and some of your white paint. Everybody has 2 ounces of white paint and 2 ounces of black in their kit, and that should be plenty for what we're doing. So you're gonna, actually your in your kit are in a little tub, so you may not even need to squirt onto the paper plate, but that's up to you. I did put a couple paper plates into the kits as well. So your wood will be totally bare. I have a coat on this already, but all you're gonna do is start in one direction. Okay, best to go, I like going up and down vertically. Now I don't know if this home is gonna cover up that I have on there, but just ignore that. I'm just using a piece that we already have. Yours will be plain. So you just wanna go up and down kind of smoothing as you go along. You will find that the wood will show through a little bit, but now this is up to you. I actually kind of liked, especially on the white, I really kind of liked that feeling of a little bit of the wood showing through. It just looks a little bit more natural and rustic, but that will be totally up to you. You will see less of that the more coats of paint that you put on. On the black one that I did here, I have 3 coats of paint. So this is going to take a little bit of time to do, because you got to do, I would do both sides, and you want to do all your edges, just because if you stand it up, I guess if you're going to hang it on a wall, and you don't see the other side, that could be up to you. But I just think it looks more finished to, oops, I got a little something in my paint. I think it looks a little bit more finished if you do both sides. Maybe I had a little something on my brush or whatever, but you can just pick that out. Okay, so we'll just keep going along here, smoothing as I go. And again, it's a little different look because you're not seeing it going onto the bare wood, but it's the same process. I used this for something else, so I'm just kind of going over it there. Okay, so you just want to smooth. Be a little careful along your edges that you're not getting drips down the side, because that just doesn't look so nice. And when you start to do your opposite side too, you got to be careful that you don't get any seeping along the bottom. That's why I think it's kind of good just to work flat, and it shouldn't really go onto the other side then. Got a little something in my paints. Okay. So, once you've got your coat all on, you're gonna let it dry. And I would say it takes maybe about 10 minutes to dry. The first coat dries faster. As you build to your second and third, they might take just a tiny bit longer because you've already got a coat underneath. I am going to use my trusty hair dryer just to dry a little faster so that we can go on to the next step. So bear with me for a few minutes. Oops, I don't want to lose my things here. And you can kind of feel it to see if you feel like you're getting dry here. Okay, so after your little bit of drying time, then you can put coat number 2. If you like some of that little rusticness, some of the little bit of the wood showing through, maybe 2 coats will be enough for you. But if you want to add a third to have it a little bit more slick and solid, then you can add a third. Maybe on your back you only do 2 coats because you're really not going to see that anyway, but at least it will make it look more finished. Okay, so we have our piece all painted. Now, one thing you might want to do before we start on the lettering is to take your sandpaper, and I'm going to do it on this side just because this side is has been drying longer, and if it's too wet, this won't work. But as long as your paint is dry, you can take your sandpaper and just rough up along the edges a little bit. And you can do as much of this as you want. You can come in a little bit more, but that just gives it that kind of homey, farmhousey feel. And you'll only do this on the front, on the side that you're really going to be looking at with your design. Okay, you can see it just takes a little bit of the paint up. I do a little bit, and then if you want to do a little bit more, you can move in a bit more. I mean, if you want to get really brave, you could try distressing a little bit more, but that would be totally up to you. Okay, and again, whenever we're using the sandpaper, you want to kind of wipe that off. That might be why I got a little something in my paint, because my work surface wasn't totally clean. You know, we always put in butcher paper in your kits so that you can lay it down. It's a good practice surface too if you want to try anything out, especially when we get to the lettering and that kind of thing. So now you've got some of that distressing done, and we're set to go on. So you have your 2 or your 3 coats, whatever you decide, on your piece, and now you are ready to think about what you want to do with your letters. In your kit, we have put a little home sweet home sign, okay? And then we gave you 2 just simple words of home. I just like that one word, home. In fact, I have a really cool piece in my house that says home, and it has my longitude and latitude. It's really neat. I just, you know, it's simple but nice. What you choose to do as far as your lettering might have to do with how much confidence you have doing this. This home sweet home is a little bit harder to do because these letters for home are kind of narrow, and there are just more letters in general. So if you feel confident, go for it, you know? And if you aren't quite as sure, you might want to just pick the word home and do one of these. I did the home sweet home on here. If you get out of the lines or whatever a little bit, you can use the opposite color of paint to touch up, so don't get too worried. If you want to make this something that, a word that you just enjoy and not even use the ones we put in, you could do that too. You could put your last name, Smith, Thompson, whatever. You could do that. Maybe you just want to use a sentiment or whatever. Established, and put your year. You can do whatever you would like to do, but these are just some samples for you to start with. So, I'm not going to do the home sweet home one in the video just because it does take a little longer. You can always practice on your butcher paper. You can get some scrap paper out and practice as well. We have put in some nice smaller brushes for you to work with, so that way you can stay within the lines and so forth. And there's a couple different ways to do this. Okay, what I would do at this point is to just kind of take your buffalo plaid ribbon and set it in about where you think it's going to go. It should just be at the end of the roof line. That's where we cut it to fit. And that way you can kind of see what you're going to put into your design and where it's going to fit. Now, if you didn't want to do letters, there's other possibilities. We're including some little hearts and moons, and you could just do something as simple as, if you look at this, a little moon. You could do a heart. Marianne suggested she kind of liked the heart up here. You could do that. You could do a little heart. So you could combine these with the letters or just do something like this. So I think I am going to start with showing you how to transfer. Now I'm just hoping this isn't going to be too wet yet. And I think I will just use, again, the simple word home. Now you can center this. You can put it off to the side. Like in this one, I put it off to the side and I put the key on the other side. If you do center it, you might want to use your ruler that you'll have at home and measure from side to side at the end of the letters and just be sure that you do have it centered. If you don't mind and you want to do it more off to the side, that's fine too. Now I had done this one for a previous video and you could kind of see my letters through it, but I think I am just going to try to put it as much over that other one as I can, and I will work around that. It's not going to probably look great, but okay. So you have some tape at home, and you're going to need that, not quite yet. And then we're going to transfer. One thing after you're done with your paint, between coats, I have included some little baggies in your kit that you can just wrap your foam brushes in. And the reason we're doing this is because if you go and you wash them between coats, things are gonna get too wet and they're not gonna go down really well, and your paint's not gonna be as opaque. So in between, just use the little baggies, and then when you're totally done with your project, unless you do it over multiple days, you can go ahead and wash your brushes. If you do 2 coats one day and 1 the next, you can wash your brush in between at that point. But for right now, if you're just doing a continuous working, I would just put them in these little baggies and you don't even have to worry about it. So we're ready to transfer our home design. And at this point, if you are working on the blackboard, you're going to use white chalk that is in your kit. If you're working on the whiteboard, you're going to use a graphite pencil, a little pencil, 2B is fine. And this is going to be, either way you do it, you just have to cover the entire back surface of the word, and then we're going to tape it onto the board, trace over it, and it will transfer. So, at this point, make sure that you're kind of really filling it in, all the different areas, and you'll get a better transfer that way. If you were working on a blackboard, you use the white chalk, okay? So I think because this side of my board is kind of wet, I am just going to do another word home up here, just so you can see how this is done. So let's say I'm gonna do home, home. And just take a little piece of tape that you'll have at home and tape it down. Taking your pencil, be sure it's on the sharp side, you are just going to press and outline, and this will transfer your letters for you. If you don't do it exactly perfectly, you can correct it while you're painting. Now, don't be nervous about the letters. It isn't super easy. You got to kind of have a steady hand, but practice a little bit first until you get the hang of it. And when you feel confident, go onto your board. For the most part, you can touch up things if it doesn't come out exactly as you want it, or if you go out of the lines a little bit or whatever, you can touch up with the opposite color of paint around the edges when everything's dried. So I've got my word home. You can kind of peek under because you've got it taped, and just be sure that it's come out. Now, the graphite's a tiny bit easier to work with than the chalk, because you'll find with the chalk, you have to be careful that you're not working over the chalky area. So, you know, maybe you even want to pick your direction, but go in one direction so that you don't put your hand over it totally, because it will rub the chalk off. So you do have to be a little bit more careful with that. But we didn't want anything that we put on the back that wouldn't come off your board. So I think the chalk is probably the best. Now, if you're working on the blackboard, we have white paint that you can use on a thin brush to brush it in. If you have a chalk marker at home, that does work. In fact, I went over after I painted. I took a chalk marker that I had in my stash and shook it up and touched up so that this would be a little bit darker. So you could do that if you want. Otherwise, we have just provided the white paint to do that. Now on the black, we provided a Sharpie marker, and you can go either way, or you can use the paint. So I'm gonna kind of show you a little bit of both. And you want to kind of keep your white paint out there again too, because you may need some touch-ups when things dry up. So, this brush is bigger than I thought. We gave you kind of fine ones because I think it's better to use a fine one and then build. Again, practice a little bit first on your butcher paper. When you feel confident, go on and continue. if any of the lines need to come out at the end, you can just kind of rub them out. So sometimes it's helpful to move your board around, and that way you can get a better sweep with your hands. Don't worry about everything being perfect. If it's not, when things are dry, I can show you on this one how you can go back in and touch up. Like this, I probably got a little wider than I wanted. And the first coat is going to not look perfectly opaque, so you will have to add a second coat. Again, turning that board sometimes helps just a wee bit. Like, see, I went a little bit out of the line there, but that can be touched up with your white paint, but everything has to be dry before you do that, or you're gonna get smearing. Okay, so that's basically how you work with the paint. Now, if you wanted to do the marker on the white, that is probably a little bit easier. So you choose what you feel most confident with. Continue. All right. Do just the rest of the M here. I think with a marker, you just don't get as many little lines that you probably have to touch up. But either way, you know, some of the rusticness of it is the fact that it's not absolutely perfect, and that's okay, you know. Okay, now let's say that you want to touch up a little bit. Just put some of my white paint back here, and I'll show you how I kind of use both my brushes here. You can just go in like I see I have on this one, kind of a little bump that I don't like. So you can go in once everything's dry and just touch up. And again, moving your board around. Use the flat edge of your paintbrush. If you go in a little bit again, you can touch it back up. Kind of wet on wet. When things have so many steps, sometimes this is hard to show in a video. But you can see, you can just kind of work back and forth until you get the look that you want. Okay? Like I don't know if this will be dry enough yet, but I got a little bit out of the lines here, so I can just go in and kind of touch that up. Touch up here. And you're just going to work back and forth until you get the look that you want. Now, I would go back in on this and put a second coat as well. You get a little different look with the paint versus the marker, so you have to decide which you like the best. I think that the paint comes out a little bit darker in color, so you decide which is most appealing to you. So you get your letters on. I'm going to take another one of these and kind of put my brushes in here so that I can wash them all up at the end and it won't ruin my brushes. Now I am going to put in a little bit wider, like the brush I was just using. I have some that if you want to paint a heart or whatever, it's a little bit wider. And again, what I would do with that is just put it onto your board and trace it with a pencil. and then go ahead and paint the interior of it. But you can add whatever you like, okay? So basically, we've got our letters on now, and now we're ready to embellish, okay? So I'm gonna put this aside, bring this over here, and I think I'm just gonna cut this off and we will just start again so that you can see how this is done. Putting some of my paints aside. Now, do not embellish until you have all your painting done and until everything is totally dry. So you may want to paint one day and embellish the next, or paint one morning and embellish in the afternoon, or whatever. But you know, give things a good chance to dry. Okay, get rid of that. Kind of clean off my working surface here a little bit and get ready to add the fun stuff. Okay, all my painting's done. Board is painted, have my letters on, I have my heart or my moon or whatever else I want to do. You have a piece of buffalo plaid ribbon that is cut to fit right at the end of the roof line. And here is how you're going to adhere it. We have these little glue lines, and everybody has like 4 glue lines in their kit, and they really hold pretty well. I already have these on here, and I think I've used those a couple times, but you're basically going to place your ribbon, and there's really not, I think there might be a right side and a wrong side. There's one side where the stitching's a little bit looser, so you can choose which side you like, but basically you're just gonna press the sticky side down and then pull it up, and then you are going to press your ribbon to the line. They have glue dots like this too, so, and then you'll pull it around. You want things to be nice and taut, and you're going to do the same thing with the next one. Just go on the end of the ribbon, press good, pull the line up, and then pull your ribbon nice and taut just at the end of the roof line. I think I should have gone over a little further. So I think I'll put one more. You do have a couple extra ones too. If you would rather use a glue gun for this step, that's perfectly fine. You can do that, but we were, you know, just trying to think of something we could add into your kit that would work for you. And you do have a couple lines. If you feel like you want to put one on the front side or anything, you can do that as well too. I feel like I'm butterfingers. There we go. Okay. It's nice and taut now. And then your twine is going to help hold things together too. Okay, you have 5 yards of twine. So what I would suggest you do is unroll it. I think I got a piece of the glue stuck to me. And divide it into a half. This is a little hard to show because I'd probably stand up if I was doing this on my own. Okay, but just get it so you've got it in basically 2 like this. Pick your center, and then you're going to wrap from the front around the back. Go back around. And just keep doing this. I think it probably goes around about 3 or 4 times. And go back around. And then come back to the front. And we're going to do one more time. And again, if you want to do less, that's totally up to you. when you have them all, then you kind of want to scrunch them all together. And this again will help to hold that ribbon on as well. Okay, then you want to go under in one spot. You got to decide kind of where you want to put your key, okay? Actually, I think I'll do it with this one. Go under in one spot just so it gives you a little bit better knot. I'm going to put my key off to the side. Actually, you want to do a knot first, then go under. I was thinking, why is this not working? So when you get where you want to put your key, tie one knot, go underneath. This will give you a better knot. And then tie. And here you would want to do a double knot. Okay, so find where you want that key. You can always slip this. Find where you want the key, tie a knot, go underneath the twine again and tie a double knot. And then you are going to tie your little bow. Oops, but when we tie the bow, we want to put the key in. So anyway, we're going to take this, thread it through the top of the key. Now this is a part you can add something of your own too. Like say you have a house key that was your first house key to your home, or you have, you know, maybe the key to your parents' house or something like that, something you want to remember. You could add this to that too. If you have a special charm that says something, you could add a couple beads, whatever you want, but you can add a little bit of something personal, a personal embellishment here if you would like. I'm going to say kind of double knot everything at this point, just so we're sure it kind of sticks together, and then decide on the size of your bow that you want. It can be large, medium, small, whatever you want. You should have enough ribbon, and I would double knot that as well. And then at that point, you just cut however long you want these to be, and voila. Now I've also included in your kit some raffia. So if you find you want to add something else a little bit more natural, you could take a little piece of that and tie that in as well. Just adds to some interest. But this is something, maybe you have a cute little burlap flower or something you have at home, and you could add something like that. You know, the sky's the limit as to what extra things you add. You know, any little doodads or whatever. Maybe I'll do this one a little shorter. Brush it off, and there we are. You got your cute little home sweet home plaque ready to enhance your living space. You can give it as a gift. Maybe someone you know just bought a new home, maybe someone's getting married, whatever, but it's a fun thing to do. So roll up your sleeves, get creative. Don't let yourself get bored on these cold wintry days. There's no reason for it because we have all kinds of things that you can do to keep you busy. One thing too I would love to have people do more of is if you do a project, please send it to me via email, and we can post them on Facebook or on our website or whatever, just to let other people know what you're doing. I would love to have you do that. My email is in the direction sheet, so you can do that. I haven't had too many people send things back, so honestly, I just love seeing people being creative anyway. So please think about doing that. I really enjoy it, and we'd like others to be able to share in your creativity as well. So until next time, go get your kit and start crafting.